people would perhaps argue with me, but I'll just play you just a quick fragment from one of his songs and just tell me what you think. Cześć wam, nazywam się John i witam na kanale John w Polsce na październikową, listopadową edycję English Just For You, gdzie analizujemy 5 zdań w języku angielskim i wyszukujemy błędy w nie, oraz po czym nastąpi John's Random Questions. To są pytania zadawane w tym pudełku i będę na nie odpowiadał, oczywiście w języku angielskim. Pozostała część tego nagrania to już nie w języku angielskim. Zapraszam. Hello, I'm John and welcome to my YouTube channel John's Box and to the October-November edition of English Just For You, where I look at 5 English sentences and try and find their mistakes and of course give you the answers. It's a game you can play. Maybe you can guess the mistakes before I give them to you. This show has been running now for a couple of years, so you may want to see some previous editions just by clicking the link at the beginning of the video. After which we'll follow another round of John's Random Questions, where I'll be looking at, I'll be picking 5 questions from this box. These questions are about everything and nothing from my students over the years, and I'll try, as I've just mentioned, I'll try to answer them. So without further ado, let's look at the first sentence, which says, I work here for 10 years. Well, obviously it's from the past up to now. So let's say it's 2024 right now. I started in 2014. I'm still working here. So it needs to be the tense that puts together the past and the present, which we call present perfect. So the answer therefore is, I have worked, past participle on the verb, I have worked here for 10 years. Alternatively, I have worked here since 2014. So that's the first sentence. Sentence number 2 then, he can't explain to it for me. Well, there's something wrong here. We have the verb to explain. We don't put the to preposition after the verb unless there's another verb coming after that. In this case there isn't, so the to should be before the verb explain, giving us the answer of, he can't explain it to me, or for me if you want. Maybe I want something explained, therefore he'd have to explain it for me there. Okay, so that's the second sentence, and we moved on to the third in that case. The third sentence, which is, he was so bad at president. There are 2 ways in which we can answer this one. Either we can remove the president and leave it as so bad, so before the adjective, if we know previously that we're talking about the president. Or if we've got a noun here, instead of so, we would need such plus the indefinite article a, because presidents are countable, giving us the correct sentence of, he was such a bad president. There is a possibility for the more advanced of you to read it as, he was so bad a president, but it's a rare use of that construction. I would avoid it. So that's the third sentence there for you. Sentence number 4 reads, this is the penultimate. I've done it 10 years ago. Now this is a finished action, so there's no connection between the past and the present when it comes to the grammar. 10 years ago has finished. That was in the year 2014. So we need to get rid of the have and the past participle, replacing it with, I did it 10 years ago. That's sentence number 4. And finally, sentence number 5, which reads, I think yes, I think no. In many languages, including the other language I know, which is Polish, sądzę, że tak, myślę, że nie. translates like that. But here we're dealing with the English language. We don't say I think yes, I think no. We'll just say I think so, or I don't think so, as the case there. So that's sentence number 5. We've now come to the end of random questions. Did I say random questions? Well, I meant sentence corrections. Now it's time for John's random questions, where I answer or attempt to answer 5 questions, as I've mentioned, randomly chosen by myself. And let's look at the first one here. Is Michael Wiśniewski a good singer? Somebody asks. Well, you may, if you don't live in Poland, you may not even know who Michael Wiśniewski is. He's quite a controversial figure who was very popular, I think 15, 20, even 25 years ago on the Polish music scene, Polish pop scene as well. He would have green hair or red hair, quite longish. Actually, he was brought up in a foster home, and that's where he learnt to sing. Well, I think he's a good singer personally. A lot of people would perhaps argue with me, but I'll just play you just a quick fragment from one of his songs and just tell me what you think. So have a listen. Right, so quite a strong voice there. Yeah, I think he's a good singer, actually. Okie doke, let's move on. It's a very old question. I would print the early ones in a very old Word program, pre-Windows 95. And the question is, what is your wildest fantasy, or is it a secret? Be brave and tell us. Wildest fantasy, well, of course we fantasize, but I think I'll keep that one to myself. I don't think I have any wild fantasies anyway, and if there are fantasies, they just come and go. Well, let's move on to the next question. Who is your favourite philosopher? Who's my favourite philosopher? I don't really know many of them, maybe one or two. Let me think. Who's my favourite philosopher? Well, I'm going to go for the French philosopher called Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He was born in 1712 and lived until 1778 in France. Actually, he was born in the Republic of Geneva and died in the Kingdom of France. I know this is quite boring stuff. I'm going to read a fragment of how he couldn't remember how he learnt to read, but he remembered how when he was 5 or 6 his father encouraged his love of reading, quoting from Confessions Book 1. I'll have to read this, if you excuse me. Every night after supper we read some part of a small collection of romances, which had been my mother's. My father's design was only to improve my reading, and he thought these entertaining works were calculated to give me a fondness for it. But we soon found ourselves so interested in the adventures they concerned that we alternately read whole nights together and could not bear to give over until after a volume. Sometimes in the morning, on hearing the swallows at our window, my father, quite ashamed of this weakness, would cry, "Come, come, let us go to bed. I am more a child than thou art." Close quote there. And he would read escapist stories such as La Strie, which affected him, and the list goes on and on there. So that's the answer to that question, that very long answer. So time to choose the penultimate question. Okay, what is this? From 2016. Why I don't want to sleep when I have a day off. Then when I have to go to work, I'm so sleepy. No, I don't have this problem actually. Well, days off for me are few and far between, actually, because of the nature of my job, but I absolutely don't have a problem like that. Maybe you do. Right, so final question then, in John's random questions. The future of F1. Well, the future of Formula 1. Well, it's always been, at least for the last 30, 40, 50 years, it's always been about money. And there have been drivers who have dominated it. And what they tend to do in Formula 1 is to change the rules. If somebody's been dominating it for too long or has a huge advantage over the rest, I'm talking about drivers, then what they do is to change the rules, and then another smart ass comes along, and then they have to change the rules again. So it does have a future because there's a lot of money. And Formula 1, by the way, is extremely safe nowadays. You can have an accident 200 miles an hour and can come out intact. Yep. So that's the future of Formula 1. I'm sure it'll be around in my lifetime and yours too. So there you have it. That's the end of John's random questions and John's and English just for you. I'll be back again next month for another edition. Thanks for sticking to the end, and see you again in another video on John's Box. Bye for now.